Okay, so we're going to go on to the next stage of the research paper, and that is the proposal. So we've got a initial idea. Now we need to expand or develop it into a formal proposal. Um, First thing to look at is title. Here's the original title of this particular paper we're going to be looking at in this presentation. Restaurant names in South Korea and the USA. Well, that's good because it tells us what it's about, but it's kind of boring. So maybe we can introduce something catchy. So what about this as a title? Tomato to Forever Yum, colon, restaurant names in South Korea and the USA. Much better. Okay, next is introduction. We have to just give a little bit of idea of what the paper's about. So this is what our authors wrote. Restaurant names can tell us a lot about the culture of a city or even a country. The name of the restaurant in Seoul, Korea, Tomato, suggests the degree of foreign influence on and the willingness to play with foreign words. Forever Yum in Los Angeles again suggests the desire to create catchy names and also suggests the current popularity of pho, the Vietnamese dish. And that's sufficient to get us going as an introduction. Okay, next we're going to talk about why are you doing this research? What are your aims and justification? And we can have two sources for your justification. One, in terms of research. Has anybody done this research before? Well, if not, then we have a gap, and that's sufficient justification for doing the research. We can also justify it from our own particular interests. And interestingly, the authors of this particular paper one was Korean and one was Korean American. So one of the authors is Korean and the other Korean American. So we were interested to learn more about both American and Korean culture. So that's a justification from who you are and your particular interests. Next, we're gonna do the references. These are going to be in APA. We need three references, two of which should be from scholarly articles. So if you have a look at the reference list there, notice the authors are organized alphabetically. Notice we're using their initial, their second name as an initial, and then in parentheses we have the particular year it was published. That first one there is from a book, and you can see who the editors are, right? And notice if it's the name of a book, it's italicized. Okay. Um, Also, names of journals are italicized. So the second one by Denise there, there's the name of the title, what's in a brand name, and then it's from the journal names. And notice that's been italicized, and we have the volume and issue number, and then the page numbers. The third one is from the web, and notice how that has the words there retrieved with the date that you retrieved it and the actual website. Okay, so three references, two at least two scholarly, and follow the rules of the APA style sheet. Um, Next are the research questions, and these are not easy to do. On the right there, I've given you some criteria to take into consideration when you're creating your research questions. They should be generated from your aim or justification statement, and they make sure the questions are answerable. Um, and that means that they need to be narrow and focused enough. And if you find that a question can be answered by library research, then rewrite it, because what we're doing is primary research. We're doing empirical research. We're collecting data, and that is primary research. Here are some examples of the questions taken from the paper that we're looking at. Will more Korean restaurants use the name of a dish, food, or ingredient? Okay. Will Korean restaurants use more traditional Korean words, Sino Korean, in the names? Yeah, that's fine. Will restaurants appealing to younger people use more informal, casual language in their names? That's a tough one because first we have to know whether the restaurant is appealing to younger people, and then we also have to define what informal and casual means. So that's a tough question, really, to answer. Okay, after research questions, we're going to go on to methodology, and there are going to be four parts to methodology. First, we begin with subjects or text. So if you're using people or subjects or participants, and probably in our research, not many of you are going to be doing that, but most of the time you're going to be using texts. Texts mean spoken or written sources, okay, like menus, recipes, etc. And here the texts are names of restaurants. So these particular authors took 200 restaurant names. 100 of the restaurants are in Seoul, South Korea, and the other 100 are in Los Angeles, California. And then where did it come from? Where did the text come from? This data come from? It came from the Korean restaurant names were chosen from Naver.com, while the American names were selected from Yelp.com. Okay, so that tells us about the text we're using in the methodology. So next, we're going to look at materials and instruments. So the materials, and it's a little repetitive in the methodology. The materials are the particular names, right? And you got them from those websites. The instrument is how you're going to analyze those names and put them in particular categories. So on the left side of the screen there, what you see is an instrument. It's got the types. We've got 15 types and some examples. So we categorize the restaurant names into 15 main types of names based on Gentile's categorization of restaurant names. Okay, so that's your instrument and your materials. Next, we're going to look at the methodology in terms of procedure. So again, it can be repetitive, but what we need here is a step-by-step description of what you're going to do the research. Okay, so first, collect 100 restaurant names in Los Angeles from the website Yelp and Naver.com for the restaurants in Seoul. Then you're going to categorize the restaurant names according to the instrument, okay, we just looked at. Three, you're going to count how many restaurant names from each city fall into each category, so that's raw data. And then four, we're going to calculate from that raw data the percentages of each category. Okay, so that's our procedure, and it's a step-by-step description of how we're going to do the research. Okay, so next in methodology is data, and data can either be qualitative or quantitative. So we've got qualitative data here, which are the names and the categories of the restaurant names. And we've got quantitative data, we've got raw numbers, and then we've converted them to percentages, okay? So that's all you need to say there in terms of qualitative and quantitative data. Next, we've got anticipated problems and limitations. Every study has problems and limitations, and if we can anticipate them, then we can actually correct for them. So here's a few things that our authors put down. We excluded restaurants like McDonald's, KFC, Denny's, and these authors fear that this omission might skew the data. Well, I don't know, but at least you own up to it, right? More importantly, what they found, and this happens a lot when you're trying to categorize names, is that some restaurant names fall under more than one category. It's difficult to differentiate between every restaurant so that the name only applies to one category. Yeah, that is often a continual problem with this kind of methodology. And also, another one is some restaurant names may be difficult to categorize, in which case you might try and create a new category, or you might use a column, a category which is miscellaneous. Okay, finally, you're going to actually say a little bit about what you expect to find. So this is what our authors expected to find. We expect to find that restaurants serving more traditional foods use more traditional Korean words, and restaurants appealing to younger people will use more informal, casual language. Also, we expect more restaurants in Los Angeles to be named after people, whereas more Korean restaurants will be named after the food served. So what you're doing here is you're answering your research questions in terms of a hypothesis. And another way of describing a hypothesis is saying what you expect to find. And finally, we expect the restaurants in Seoul to use more foreign language. Notice is what you expect to find, not what you hope to find. And if you don't find this, that's perfectly fine. This is what research is about. Whatever you find is what you find. Okay,